Joining me for Trading Buddies Thursday edition and the last one for the week, obviously. What have we got going on here? I don't know. We're all good. Okay, let's get into it, shall we? First up, we will look at gold. Gold hasn't had a good week this week, I don't think. My goodness. Lost everything. Bear with me 2 secs. That's somewhat intriguing. Okay, I think we're good to go. Man, this is all over the shop today. Sorry about this. I'm struggling. Guys, if you just let me know in chat what you are actually seeing. Is it the gold chart, gold 1 hour chart? That would be good to know. So I'm not being told anything here. Zoom launch. How bizarre. Righto, let's try again. How now, brown cow? Not that I'm calling you a brown cow. My apologies. Got it. Thank you, Daryl. All right, let's get stuck in. Thanks, sweet. Right, gold charts. Pretty clear that we've got very little space for a breakout here. And I'm inclined not to take it. I am indeed inclined not to take it. So we go short here, we're trading straight into support with a very small reward. Trade long here, we're trading straight into the daily pivot, also a very small reward. And on the balance of what's happened so far this week, nothing's happened that's good. The range on Monday was from there to there. No, sorry, that one there. Exactly where it is today. Interesting. Okay. So the support's exactly where it was today, was on Monday. And as you can clearly see, we didn't get too far. I actually managed this and got out when I saw this bar forming. I tried to get through here for the third time and it couldn't. So I just moved my stop to entry and wow, good move. Tuesday, the range was from there to where? 9 o'clock there. So you got triggered in with this one, smashed out with that one. Wednesday, range was from here to here. Exactly the same thing, triggered in, smashed out again. Actually, had you managed that and got out, you might have got safe at break even, but that would have been as good as it got, because then you got smashed out. And today we've got pivots and we've got the bottom of a range, so I'm not really interested. So we are adding filters to this now. Now that we're trading at 0.25%, I think it's time we just manage them properly. So no trade on gold today. Righto, so that's that up to date. Those of you who were in on Monday, I can't recall whether I went or trade this. Oh, yeah, way back when. What's today? Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Oh, okay, T for 3. I couldn't work out what I traded. But there it sits, all good. This has done absolutely nothing. Didn't get out TP1. And TP1, I think it was a bit greedy. Can't remember where it was, down here somewhere. But we didn't get it. And price has just done nothing since. We're pretty much back to where we started. Going to stay in this? Well, our stop loss was up here originally, right? Which was 300 and odd pips, 375, 380 pips. And when we couldn't get any movement above here, I said, sod this, I'm going to move my stop loss down to here, which is, almost a quarter of the risk that we took in the first place, which was 0.25%. So at the end of the day, there's very, very, very 1/16th of 1% risk on this. So really, I'm just going to let it do what it does. If it takes me out, it takes me out. But this, where there's life, there's hope, I suppose. So really playing what looked like a false break, but also set up as a T for 3 sitting there on the trade line. So we'll just let that run. CAD Swiss is going well again today, which is great. This is looking quite nice now. As I said to you early in the piece, I think this has got huge potential. And I reckon the first stop is going to be up here somewhere. Now, today, if we get a bullish bar today, I'm going to move my stop loss up to underneath yesterday's bar, because I think if we get a retest now, say we close here or even where we are, the retest will be of that level there. So I don't think the stop loss will be in any peril whatsoever. However, if we get a bear bar today, then I'll leave the stop loss exactly where it is, because the retracement could come well back to here. So bull bar today, or bullish close today above yesterday's high, I'll move my stop loss above yesterday's bar. If not, I'll just, as I said, leave it where it is. We shall see. Now, place one order, two orders today. Pound Aussie is the first of them. And Pound Aussie, not quite exactly what I'm looking for, but I figured it was not too dusty. No real reversal pattern, although, I don't know, it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. It's potentially a duck, so we'll call it a potential reversal pattern. Next, reckon, broken, retested. So that's really the play. So I'm looking for A, B, C down here somewhere. I would like to have seen it retest the trend line or trade line, to be fair, but it hasn't done that. And if it does, likelihood it's going to do it well before it comes back to this level. So really playing if that doesn't happen, then this probably will. First take profit is here at or just before the lows of this little range, and target is here. I think this will retrace at that point. That's Pound Aussie, if we're fortunate enough to get triggered. Aussie's a little bit interesting. As you probably know, the RBA raised interest rates on Tuesday, yet there's a murmur around certainly around the broadcasters. I don't know that they're the greatest economists on the planet, to be fair, but they're quoting economists. And I haven't really heard an economist. Actually, I did hear an economist. That's not true. A professor of economy, in fact, economics rather, come out and say that Australia is really on a crash course to a recession. I mean, the whole world has been talking about recession for God knows how long, yet it hasn't happened. But now there's murmurs around the Aussie camp that there may well be recession in 2024. Interesting. Does that make a difference? I don't think so, because everyone else is talking about it. So I still think the Aussie's got a deal of strength to be, or a bit of buying power to be had. So I'm still on the side of being an Aussie bull. And have we had enough retracement here? Maybe not, but let's see. The other one, and just before I bring Ash into play, I'll attract his attention by telling him I've got an order long the FTSE. Now, I'm not sure what he thinks about that, but I'll find out in a very short period of time. Really, what I'm playing here is very similar to what we saw on, what was that other pair? Can't remember. It's gone. It looks to me like a false break of this 7,600 handle. And if I show you that level, that's it there. So it has been strong resistance in the past. Not so much support. No, there was a little bit of support before we broke through it this time. So to my mind, this looks also, and I'll show you the 4-hour chart in a minute, this looks also like a break above, if you like, a break back above that level, the 76 handle, and then a retest of it. Hasn't gone through there yet, though, and Ash will obviously give me a good analysis of why this might be the case, that we've gone into consolidation rather than breaking that high, which of course is the retest candle. It's not only that horizontal level, it's the monthly pivot also, and you can see price is just stuck to the monthly pivot like glue at this point. Yesterday's bar, very interesting, yet price hasn't had a crack at that yet either. There'll be reasons, and Ash will tell me exactly why. But if we look at the 4-hour chart, that looks even more interesting because we've got a very, very clear inverted head and shoulders here with a very clear neckline. Maybe that's what's holding this up, I don't know. But the consolidation is also very clear. Want to know why? So let's ask the expert. How you going, mate?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very well. Yeah, interesting one, isn't it? I mean, that inverted head and shoulders is pretty positive, but the risk has just started to come out of the market, mainly because the BOC raising interest rates has just caught everybody on the back foot. I think when the RBA raised interest rates, it appeared that they would be the outlier. So many analysts have been effectively suggesting that the central banks would at least pause this time round. Not lower interest rates, but at least pause and allow some of the policy that has been implemented just to seep through the market and just see if that they've done enough, because the raising interest rates is lagging. It takes a while for it to kind of flush through the economy.
Yep.
And it could be that the interest rates are high enough already and inflation will edge down slowly, from this particular point. What they don't want to do, which is what makes their job so incredibly difficult, what they don't want to do is continue to raise because the numbers are sticky, and then actually have gone too far, and of course not only cause a recession but potentially something worse than that. But the RBA raising interest rates was a surprise. I think it was a surprise, but there was probably going to be at least one of them that was going to surprise, and it looked like it probably would be the RBA. I think the BOC it creates a completely different suggestion in the market, because number one, this is the second bank in a row to raise interest rates, but more importantly, they are the neighbours of the United States. So now the focus comes onto the Fed, and this is probably why I
send them a sympathy card every year for that.
Yeah, yeah. It's why we are seeing the pause, but we are seeing the FTSE actually look relatively pretty robust. The other thing that really was quite interesting is that after the weekend we heard about Saudi cutting their production of oil, and effectively picking up the slack of the nations that weren't going to be cutting their production of oil, and yet WTI didn't really move, but it hasn't moved down either. It's kind of like stayed
stuck, isn't it?
It's stuck, and that really does kind of reflect the FTSE, pretty closely. I think the FTSE probably got a lift on the anticipation that we'd see some moves in oil. It didn't happen, so the FTSE it did get stuck. But this morning we are seeing lifts in stocks. You know, AstraZeneca's slightly higher, but Shell and BP are both up north of 1%. So it appears to me that we are going to get the rally. And I think where's your buy? Your buy is just above where we are now, which looks pretty good to me. I think
it's just above Monday's bar.
Yeah,
which was the retest bar.
The data point of the day, and I was going to say it was the big data point, and I think it probably will have more weight than normal. But the data point of the day is probably initial jobless claims, because we've seen from Japan this morning, GDP actually quarter on quarter up 0.7%, and the yen's a tricky one, of course, you know, especially if we're getting this new rate hike kind of cycle kind of going on amongst the other central banks. If that was to happen, there's not really too much reason to be out purchasing the yen. But, you know, that's a decent lift, you know, 0.7% quarter on quarter, considering the others are contracting. They're not in contraction, but they are contracting. So decent lift from Japan. Trade balances from Australia very, very poor, actually.
Yeah.
When you think of the drop, a $3 billion drop there. So that's a lot.
Actually, while we're talking Aussie and numbers, and I should have mentioned this on Monday because I did notice it, but I didn't mention it, and I suppose went along with the current theme that the Aussie would remain on hold in terms of interest rates. But if you think about it, the CPI data was not good, and the employment figures weren't good.
Yeah,
both of them weren't good. So that's why the RBA went. Of course, they're watching data as everyone else is, and despite the fact that we'd had CPI coming off a little bit in most places, this was a bit of a shock. So that's why the RBA went, I think.
Yeah, well, the inflation metrics are still way too high, and they, you know, they're still combating inflation, and they know that they're going to potentially cause a recession. China's trade balances yesterday were atrocious, which also, you know, puts extra pressure on the Aussie and in Australia. So you know, we've got this picture, as you pointed out earlier, you know, that those analysts suggesting that we are heading for a recession don't appear to me to be too far wrong. And of course, they're raising into recession, which is incredibly unusual. So today we've got, as I say, that the initial jobless claims from the States and the continuing jobless claims, and initial jobless claims. I think those particular numbers are going to be fascinating to watch, because if they come in hot again, which is no reason to suggest they won't, then I think the speculation will probably compound that the Fed are due to raise interest rates. Next week we have inflation data from America, and I think that we just got this nervousness now, which is why the FTSE probably stalled in its particular position. And I'd be surprised if it did go through today, unless there is something that gives it some sort of extra boost, which I don't see anything on the horizon. Tomorrow, when we get the oil numbers from the United States, that may well give the FTSE a boost. But I'd be surprised. You know, it could go through today, but I would be quite surprised, because there's well, the one reason it may go through today is if those initial jobless numbers come up, because if they come up, then it would probably take some further pressure off the Fed and some further pressure off the market. The Nasdaq saw a pretty significant move yesterday. I mean, look at that bar; it's awful, but right on support. You know, this is sort of the lower end of the structure for the Nasdaq, and you would expect that to kind of go at least a bit into yesterday's bar, possibly the daily pivot, but that might be getting a little bit too overconfident to try and get it up to that daily pivot. But we might see just a little bit of a boost here in the Nasdaq for the first few hours. I wouldn't be looking for the Nasdaq to come through those lows initially, but after those jobs numbers come through, then you know that monthly pivot looks like it is the obvious place that the Nasdaq is going to go, at least before it gets the next rally, at least before it can rally again.
It'd be nice to see it take that level out, then come back, hit the pivots. Then you've got a good reason to go short.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even if it does kind of get a boost up here, there could be a suggestion of a head and shoulders pattern. We could be right on a neckline. So there could be sort of some suggestion that the Nasdaq's are going to be coming down a little bit, and we are in a seasonal weak period for the Nasdaq. And interestingly, the dollar tends to start a pretty good move today against the currencies, and we did see a boost in the dollar yesterday. So those jobless numbers come out, and they are still supportive of a Fed rate hike. Then it looks like the seasonal bias is going to play out for the dollar. But I personally wouldn't really want to do too much before those jobs numbers come, because I think that we could get stuck in a little bit of a crossfire as speculators decide whether it's worth the value, whether it's worth taking the value on with where we are. Of course, it's probably worth buying support if we get to a support level before the jobless numbers. It's probably worth speculating on buying some support for the dollar. But I would prefer to wait and see what those numbers are, because if they are strong, then you would expect the seasonal bias to probably take us right through till tomorrow. So I think there'll be enough time to buy the dollar if they do come out to be pretty good. If they come out weak,
stuck in a hole too, isn't it? Really, at the end of the day, isn't it?
Definitely, mate. Yeah,
dollar, oil,
if they come out weak, then you're probably looking at indexes. You're probably looking at the indices, and maybe even the FTSE could be a good one. But it might be a quiet morning, mate. I'm not seeing a whole bunch of volatility right now.
Well, it could be worse, mate. How would you like to be Hideki Matsuyama?
Who's he?
I knew you'd say that. He's a golfer, a very high-profile golfer, and you've heard of the Live Golf / PGA Tour debacle fight? No,
not really. No, is there something with Rory McIlroy?
McIlroy, yes.
McIlroy, sorry. Is that something else?
The wood's those things you hit with.
I was mixing McIlroy with Tiger, I think.
No, that's exactly the same. So the story, maybe. So the Saudis backed this Live Golf thing.
Yeah.
And they poached a handful, or more than a handful, but paid a handful of golfers to leave the PGA Tour, which is the biggest tour in the world, right? By far. And they paid them big bucks. Like I know Cameron Smith, the Australia's best golfer, he got over $100 million just to defect.
Wow.
Plus they pay big money per tournament. Hideki Matsuyama was offered $300 million to defect, and he knocked it back.
Right.
So he stayed loyal to the PGA Tour. Yeah. And 2 years down the track, the head of the PGA, or the governor, or whatever he is, the boss of the PGA, has now got into bed with the Saudis and Live Golf. So they've merged.
Wow.
So those who took the big bucks to defect are now back. See, they were excommunicated from the PGA Tour, not allowed to play.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. So they've come back now, not just now, the deal's in place. They'll come back to the PGA Tour and play wherever they want, and they've got their money that they put in their pocket. Yet Hideki Matsuyama knocked back $300 million, and he's now back exactly where he was in the first place. Had he accepted the $300 million, he would be in the same boat. So he's probably going, that wasn't a very good decision.
No, and I think that's some of the problem with loyalty in business, isn't it? Because you do stay loyal to your employer because of history and everything else, and they would have probably put quite a lot of pressure on him as well to kind of stay loyal. But at the end of the day, they're going to do exactly what makes most financial sense to them. They won't necessarily have any particular loyalty to the golfers, and you see it in football all the time. The players are expected to stay at clubs because the clubs brought them through. Managers are expected to play at clubs. but the clubs actually don't show them any real loyalty. You know, as soon as they're kind of they're not getting results, then they're kind of they're thrown to the trash heap. So it's difficult really when money comes into play, because really, I guess that the sad thing is that that business isn't, in a way, business isn't kind of something that you may as well be loyal to, but there's the other side of it that you're going to be seen as greedy. You know, if you go somewhere else, and it's a flip of a coin, isn't it? He really sort of is awful. He could have taken the 300 million, been 300 million better off and back where he was, or he could have taken it and then that thing could have collapsed and he could have been, you know, effectively 300 million better off, but without a career. So,
but I think if the money wasn't coming from Saudis, then it was a completely different story, because there's a human rights issue, right, in accepting money from the Saudis. Yet, and now the PGA Tour has been effectively bought by the Saudis. So Saudis yesterday effectively bought the game of golf, in my humble opinion.
Right.
Yeah. Which is played by zillions of people worldwide, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what's this space? I don't know how we make money out of that, frankly, but...
Well, I don't know either, mate, but it is all just business, isn't it? So did McIlroy defect, or did he not defect?
No.
Now, have I lost you, or have you lost me? Can you guys hear me? Or can you hear Jeff?
I think, Ash, you might be frozen.
Oh, okay. All right.
Are you back?
I think I'm back. You're back. I think I'm back, yeah.
Yeah. You are. All good.
Yeah, just anybody that wants some advice about internet, don't go with Virgin. They're absolutely atrocious. You know what? I'm on the super duper fast broadband, and it is constantly getting sticky.
Wow.
Yeah, that's terrible. Good. Yeah, terrible. There we go. I think we're okay. Yeah. So did he? Sorry, did he take the money? I didn't get that bit. McIlroy.
No. He knocked it back.
He knocked it back as well. Oh dear.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. That hurts.
So how do we trade
this? It doesn't hurt that much. I mean, you know, I know 300 million is still a lot of money to those guys, but still, that, you know, that it won't take them that long to kind of get remunerated, I'm sure.
It'll take most of them the rest of their lives to get anywhere near that amount of money.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's such a competitive game, man.
Yeah.
You don't stay up the top there for too long.
Mm.
And that's where the money is, of course, up the top.
So that fella that you mentioned earlier on, is he one of the best?
Hideki Matsuyama.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's high profile. He's probably in the top 10. I wouldn't say he's one of the best. I wouldn't say he's the best by any stretch. But
McIlroy might have been offered, what, $500 million?
Oh, God knows. No idea.
Wow.
But he did.
Well, yeah.
Big story.
Yeah,
What's this space?
A big story, mate. Yeah, it is a big story.
But I'm yet to find out how we make money from it.
Well, it's probably more of a moral lesson than any money to be made in that one. But you know, there's not. Well, there's probably some. I'm sure there's some NFTs or some stocks or something.
Well, when I think about it, I must research this and see if Saudi have bought any golf manufacturers. The Saudi or actually make their own, or have a factory that makes golf clubs or golf shoes or golf shirts, because now that they actually effectively own the game of golf, they've positioned themselves fairly well for marketing material. Well,
you're
merchandise, right?
There's always a supply chain, and I guess this was my thought when I saw the Nvidia story about you know, that them being so, you know, things being so lucrative for Nvidia. But you know, as chip makers for you know, a lot of AI systems, then you start to kind of wonder, when you start to look around, it's what like we were talking about last week, with the crypto market. As soon as that thing started to boom, everything, it didn't really matter what it was, everything was taken with it. You know, coins and tokens that were completely useless and just a kind of fun idea in some respects, but everything was going with it. And you're always kind of looking for that next thing, because it would be no different with Oil, I'm sure when oil was starting to really boom, you could probably look down the list of oil suppliers and sales of oil and oil rigs and everything else that had their hands on it, that probably did very, very well out of it. And I guess you get this with industry. So there's something to be said for that. If the Saudis have got involved in it, then there's probably something along the supply chain of that. If you could find out who's involved in it, that will do very, very well out of it. I'm still looking around for AI. I mean, I guess the problem is that there are going to be some pretty poor companies, and then the question comes in: does it matter? Because, as I say, with the crypto space, everything just took off. The AI thing might be a little bit different because stock pickers are probably just a bit more refined than crypto traders, purely because they are of a different generation. The crypto traders wouldn't have had the experience on the whole to really know necessarily what was good and what was bad and what wasn't moving and not. Obviously, the likes of Shukri and Simon, different thing. Those guys they did do their research, but I'm sure lots of people didn't. But yeah, I've been looking around the AI space for that very reason. Is there something there?
Here's a hot tip for you. If they couple AI with triple X, then you've got something.
What's triple X?
Big porn.
Oh, I should have known you'd lower the tone.
That will absolutely explode, in my humble opinion.
Behave.
I'm not saying anything other than I think it's a good investment.
I think it's probably already done, mate. It's probably already done. I mean, it's every AI all of a sudden is everywhere. Do you know? I've been looking at potentially. There's a cafe around here, and I quite like the look of it. So I've been looking to maybe invest in this cafe, and I looked at also like lots of systems that I thought, right, do you know what would be really cool is if it was just purely automated. And when I looked around at a lot of the systems, they are there, but they're still really, really new and for that reason, really expensive to set up. And also, there's not that many options. There's not as many options as I thought there'd be. I thought they'd be all over the place, but there's not actually that many options to purely fully automate the system. Everything. Mm-hmm. There's this pizza place in Paris which has got this pizza making robot. But it's huge, and it
makes the pizzas, right?
It does everything. It's amazing. It does the dough, kind of gets the dough nice and flat. It puts the topping on. It gets it in it puts it in the oven. It gets it out of the oven, chops it, and delivers to the customer. And the great thing is, of course, it's consistent. It's the same flavor every time. So if you like the pizza, you're not going to get anything different. You're not going to get any kind of nuance. So yeah, but there's not that many, and it's pretty big. This is a big robot. It sort of takes up half the shop. The amount of all the hydraulics and the system to kind of like maneuver this thing is huge. It's not a small. Number one, it's not a small investment, but you need some space equity as well. So I'm sure there's
what AI. Space? What does that mean? What's space equity?
They need room. The huge arms. They're
massive. They do. I thought you meant you do as an investor.
Oh no, not as an investor. No. To get the kind of robot in place, the robot takes up a lot of room. So there's I just think that
I guess it depends how many pizzas it can make in a certain amount of time. So in other words, how many people it replaces, etc., etc. If it makes sense.
Well, it doesn't. Yeah,
financially, then they'll do it.
Yeah, it doesn't get tired. The other thing is, mate, you can get pizza 24/7 because the robot is not going to go to sleep, and you can just order through this little cubby hole, and it sort of like puts it in the cubby hole and all sorts of stuff. So
it doesn't care if it gets robbed or anything like that. Yeah.
No, probably can't get robbed. I mean, it's there's no question that it's on its way. I wonder whether we're still kind of 5 years out before they're developed enough to kind of make them affordable for all, because that's the thing. Not every you go into McDonald's now or Burger King or any of that, they've got purely automated systems for ordering your food. but a smaller company would need something a lot more simple, really. You'd probably have to throw around an iPad or something. So there are sort of like different things out there, but it's still a bit. It's not as advanced as I thought it would be. I think there's still a lot of money that needs to go into it.
Actually, that's a really interesting point that you just made, because if you're talking about robots, the most effective way to get them to the public is to make them small, right? So you can have one of your own, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
And that Phil was talking about that on Monday. I think he was talking about that on Monday. No, not in the show. Last Thursday, maybe. With nuclear power, right? You can now, instead of having Fukushimas and Hiroshimas and do you have one? Whatever. There are smaller plants that are now nowhere near as cumbersome or obviously more affordable. All of those sorts of things that go with miniaturization.
Yeah,
and I guess.
Well, Jeff.
Sorry, mate.
Safer as well, mate.
Safer. Well, there you go. I wasn't going to go to that one, but yeah.
Well,
tell us more.
Yeah, it's a bit of a misnomer, all this, isn't it? Really. What brought it home to me was when years ago I was in the Science Museum in London, and in there is a nuclear-powered clock. Now, it's not in a big lead cage or 100 feet up in the air with peak cameras on it. It's just sitting there in the public walk all around it. So it's not that unsafe, is it? It's nuclear powered. So the other hand, the opposite of that, of course, is Chernobyl, where I think we mentioned this on another show, where basically the Russians put a supercharged 350 or 580 cubic inch race engine in a Morris Minor. Well, that was always doomed to fail for various reasons. Well, that can't happen anymore.
Wouldn't it be bigger than the car?
Well, that's the whole thing. And nuclear, the Chernobyl plant was bigger than the brains that were running it. So, and when it got out of control, that was it. But now that doesn't happen anymore. And I've read articles recently where they've done testing on the new bunkers they're building the bigger power stations in now, and they've tested them with the biggest intercontinental missiles they've got. And when the missile hits them, the missile vaporizes and the bunker's still there.
Whoa.
So the biggest risk with a nuclear plant is not the plant itself these days, it's the threat to it from an external source. So that's the sort of thing they're doing.
There's a flip for you.
Yeah, so that's right. So when you come down to the SMRs, which Rolls-Royce is a matter of interest to one of the leaders, because they've been making nuclear setups since the 50s. So it's not new. And they've got them now, basically, they can bring them in on a semi-trailer, unload them in a subdivision, hook them up like, modular like houses. So the point is, with that size plant, I mean, they're not going to put them in the middle of the subdivision, obviously. But the point is, when they put them wherever they're going to put them, and they build their safety procedures around them, if something went wrong, it's not the end of the world, if not that it ever would. But if it even blew up, it's not going to wipe out half of the population like some of the old-fashioned massive ones were. So it's a whole different game these days, So once they get their head around that, then I think it'll be a lot more viable. Or accepted, I should say. Yeah.
So we won't be able to grab one and put it in the backyard just yet.
Well, mate, I can't see. I got sidetracked a bit. When I came home from London, I said to my father, "Well, there's a nuclear-powered clock there. Why can't we just power cars with it?" Can you imagine a car would run for probably, I don't know, I'm guessing the little bit of knowledge I've got, probably 3 or 4 years, 2 or 3 or 4 years on some nuclear power that's about as big as a 50-cent piece. So imagine just have to swap one of those over every 5 years. By that time, it'll be some trained mechanic. The system will be so, what's the word? I'm thinking of neutral or inane, or what the word is anyway, not volatile, that they'll have people trained. You'll just go into a suitable service centre. They'll just change over your nuclear power module, whatever, a pellet, and away you go again for another 2 or 3 or 5 years. So, and if that got out of control, once again, it's a microscopic, basically. I mean, it's just not going to fry, half a town or anything. That's the point. So it'd be.
So EVs sound like EVs have got a short lifespan to me.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Lithium batteries were redundant 10 years ago, so that's always going to happen. And then by the time they get that sorted, other things will be on the way, in my opinion, because they don't, as you know, here in Australia, I mean, I've lived on a property where an EV wouldn't even get to the main road and back up the driveway.
And when it does, it takes an hour to charge the bloody thing.
A day.
A day, then it doesn't. Yeah, so it's not quite that bad now.
Where I worked in Nyngan, yeah, that's right. It would have been flat by the time I got out to the nearest civilization where I could buy an ice cream and a beer, and I would have had to charge up for a day when I got back.
You had those in the wrong order, by the way.
Yeah, I understand, but I was trying to be. I didn't say bourbon or moonshine, did I?
No, that's more up your alley, exactly. The question is, of course, because we're in a trading show, how are we going to make money from all this? How do we position ourselves?
Oh, well, I think you know my view on that.
I know your view.
but yeah, so you've got to buy the things that are going to make money, obviously. And I mean, when you look now, there's billions of dollars being spent on developing these SMRs, and Rolls-Royce have been into it. They've got some fantastic stuff now. So that I still think we're just starting that cycle now. I think that's one of the main ones. Yeah, it's great.
Rolls-Royce, you say, Phil. You like Rolls-Royce?
Oh, well, they got some fantastic. It's really good to me because and I can't remember whether it was Rolls-Royce or another one, but all of a sudden, Bill Gates has discovered nuclear power. You see, so he just goes, "Oh, I'll fix this." So he goes in and he tries to buy all the technology that Rolls-Royce have been developing for the last, whatever number of years.
All right.
And they basically said, and I think I just don't know whether it's Rolls-Royce or one of those or a company that's into the modern nuclear stuff, and they just told him to go and get stuff basically. So I thought that was fantastic because it keeps pricks like him got it. Well, you'd never know what he'd be doing with it,
He listens to the show,
It's
good on him.
It's Rolls-Royce. It's a bit of a mad one because actually it's one of those companies that people don't really talk about very much, but it's doubled in value in a year. I know we saw that with a lot of companies, but
is that Rolls-Royce? Sorry.
Yeah, Rolls-Royce. Yeah, double in value. I mean, it's a huge run. Very very recently in February. Actually, I'm not sure what was going on there, but maybe some of it could be. Well, I was going to say, maybe some of it was war related. I'm not sure, but the run didn't start really until this year.
I reckon you will find that is nuclear related, Ash. To be honest with you.
Yeah, interesting, mate. Interesting.
I've looked at Rolls-Royce in the past. Sorry for cutting in.
That's okay.
I've looked at Rolls-Royce in the past purely from an automotive point of view because that's our family's automotive engineering for generations. And it was interesting that years ago, Rolls-Royce were a blue chip company until the day they went bankrupt.
Yes.
So they've come from that wouldn't you love to have bought them then, to what they are now, and you've just seen the rally. So it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's and it's I suppose I think we've almost done it before where we were going to sort of like start talking about stocks and certain companies, but of course the research is quite different when you talk about that stuff rather than currencies, and the guys on the other side of the screen tend to be trading currencies. So that's what we stick to. But talking about some of this stuff as well for some ideas, it's great, and I think it would be really interesting to kind of like have a really deep dive into some of these companies. We talked.
Well, my thoughts on trading currencies. I think we've got a time limit on us.
Well, this is the other thing about AI, isn't it? Do you know what I'm seeing now? And it's interesting, sort of like the trends in the market, particularly, and you guys in the room, you must be sort of aware of this as well. Good morning, by the way, Lewis. Yes, Brighton did do well. in Europe next year, which is amazing. West Ham managed to win a European Cup yesterday. We've got so the trends in the market seem to change. So up until now, what we've had is these new sort of accounts that you put $50 in or $100, and you go up tiers. You get to 10%, and you go up to the next tier. And you can choose to do a profit split or put your money. Keep your money in there and kind of go up to the next tier where the company provides you with from 1,000 to 2,000 to 4 to 8 to 16 and so on, right the way up to 1 million. So you've got 1 million to trade with. But all of a sudden, we're starting to see AI and AI stock picking kind of coming into play. And this is where I think the market is quite interesting, because actually, if you bought into one of these companies that provided you with an account to trade, then you'd be no better off. You know, that there's no way that these companies would be created if it wasn't a decent way for them to make money. And when you see quite a lot of them all of a sudden coming online, you know that it's a good way for them to make easy money, because lots of people, the majority of people are going to lose, and the others that don't lose either have got a trading account big enough to get involved in it, or they kind of well, you know, they've kind of got a different approach to trading, so they're not going to use these systems. So those companies are kind of, you know, stacked in the favor of themselves, of course. But now we're sort of like seeing the same thing with my point with that is that trading still stayed the same. You know, if you are decent at analyzing, you're decent at analyzing charts or fundamentals or seasonals or COT or whatever it is that you use, then you're going to still continue to make money, regardless of the new products that are on the market. Now, AI maybe will change the game, possibly, but it might well be that AI can't really change the game, because you are still going to need somebody on the other side of the market to take the positions. And if AI is you know, becomes so good that it can stock pick or currency pick to an amazing degree, right across the board, then everybody's going to be doing the same thing. So the market will just stop. So I wonder whether we are really still in the same place as we always were, i.e., good analysis, good sort of, you know, regardless of where it comes from, good psychology. You know, good money management, rather than sort of like continuing to sort of like look for something that makes this whole thing a lot easier. You know, is it possible that apart from the big institutes, it just doesn't exist, and you just sort of, you know, you just keep your head down and keep going, because the market won't change sufficiently to kind of take us out the game?
I think you're spot on there, Ash. I reckon that's how it's going to be, because you just can't, nothing's just going to fail. This big reset thing is just a bit of a misnomer, I think, in the eyes of the public, because although I don't disagree with what Jeff says, like history proves that no currency's ever lasted the test of time.
Yeah.
So they're all going to change one way or the other. But are we going to be trading currencies as what we trade now, or is it all going to be Bitcoin or, you know, digital currency?
Yeah, I think it's Buckley's to be fiat. Won't be fiat. I can't see that.
No, well, that's right, and it will fail. But what form it takes, I think you're spot on, Ash, in the sense that who's going to take the other sides of the trade? And to me, AI is kind of a good thing, because they're so, for those that can trade, they're so predictable. So those that can take the other sides of the trade, but God help the rest of them, you know what I mean? It's just another way of ripping the money out of the public, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So, where it ends up and what form it takes, you know, you never know, obviously. But because, as you know, in the market, it gets to where you think it's going to go, but not the way you thought it was going to get there.
Yeah, absolutely
so
right.
I think life is like that. So I think this will just be another form of us. We'll just adapt into something else, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. I mean, the one thing that we can't change and won't change, regardless of what we think about what we've just spoken about, the markets were always there to facilitate world trade. That's not going to end, right?
Correct.
So whatever that currency is, it will still exist. So whenever and this is where seasonals come into play as well. China, well, not so much China, but let's say Canada will always want to buy for a better one of a better product. They'll always want to buy watermelons in June because it's so cold up there, right? They can't grow watermelons. So they'll buy watermelons from Australia or wherever. So Australian dollar in that instance should appreciate versus the CAD because they're going to sell Canadian dollars to buy Aussie dollars, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an interesting...
That premise, I'm not just talking watermelons, obviously.
Well, I think that in itself is interesting, Jeff, because my view of things on that is that I reckon they'll grow them in Canada. I know I've seen technology 15 years ago where a guy was growing 4 crops of strawberries in Australia. So he has a completely controlled environment and he just changes the environment, the right amount of days, the length of the daylight in the days, and gets a crop of strawberries in 3 months instead of 6 months or whatever it is. He just kept changing actually, I think it was more than 4 a year. Might have been 6 or 8 a year. It was amazing once they know, because they know the genetic requirements for every seed and every plant now. So this is where I think some of the emissions has got to come. I don't disagree with this emission stuff to some degree, because some of the crazy things, like I mentioned to you the other day, like how many different types of cars are there? Well, why don't we just do one type of car and lease it out to all the different countries? Each country has its own plant, keeps its own population in work, but make all the cars the same, exactly the same design. So then there's no parts issues. You can get parts for the same cars all around the world all the time. You've halved your emissions. Setting up plants to make a different, some of those companies are crazy. Like they'll just about change every part in a car every 5 years, and there's not even any point. So that's where a lot of emissions can be saved. And the same by carting, I was mixed up in shipping for 8 or so years. And the amount of shipping, if you just look up the marine traffic and see how many ships are around the world every minute of the day, the emissions from some of those ships are burning 5 tons of fuel an hour. And
they've all got planes flying over the top of them as well.
Unbelievable. And they worry about us having, they want us to save 20 cents in fuel and buy an electric car. It's going to cost you 70 grand. Like it's brain dead rubbish. So once they get that in their head, they can well refine all those things. They won't be carting watermelons from Australia to Canada. They'll be growing them in their own controlled environment up there. That's where I think there'd be potential to make money. And I believe that's why Gates and those and all his mates have bought all that land in America. I suppose you've all seen that. Like they own numbers of states in area now. And I reckon that's what they're going to do with them.
That's something that Singapore have done, haven't they? Singapore and the guys in the room will confirm this, that they've sort of, I think I can't remember exactly what happened, but there was some sort of national security issue where there was some deal with some food suppliers. So they've started to grow lab grown meat, and I guess that might well become a bit of a thing where countries try and protect themselves from what's happened in Russia, and actually sort of try and become self-sufficient, because technology will enable them to do that. As you quite rightly say, Phil, that there's maybe there's no reason that Canada can't grow their own watermelons. If the technology's there, then if you can produce meat in a petri dish, then surely plants would be even easier.
Well, if you go,
people, they're doing people now too.
Yeah, anything.
Even in England, you can grow things in a hothouse, so that just changes your length of your season, you say.
Yeah.
So it's just another extension. To my logical head, it's just another extension on that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we follow Bill Gates again. How do we make money out of this?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it, mate? This is where things become a lot more refined. When it comes down to what we are presented with on MT4, there's not really anything that connects to it directly or closely enough for us to kind of like see a correlation and to take advantage of any moves in that kind of industry, in those industries. you would have to sort of have a completely different discussion about specifics. And we talked about Rolls-Royce, and that's very specific. Rolls-Royce won't really affect the FTSE hugely. I know it's part of the FTSE, but it's not.
That was going to be my question. How big a chunk of the FTSE is Rolls-Royce?
Not enough.
Not much.
Not enough. No, not much at all. Actually, I mean, you know, I can tell you sort of Rolls-Royce has a market cap of just over 12 billion. The AstraZeneca, which is the biggest company on the FTSE, is 183 billion. So it's nowhere near. You know, it's not even a tenth of the size of the you know the biggest two companies actually. So it won't have any effect.
Sorry, I was just going to say, how big is BHP, just to give us a bit of perspective?
BHP is no longer. Let me just have a quick look. BHP is no longer traded on the FTSE. It's not part of the FTSE 100 anymore.
Okay. I think it's based in Australia, isn't it? It's actually based in Australia.
It is, but you're right though, mate. It used to be on the FTSE, but it's not there anymore. You know, the biggest mining company is Rio Tinto, which is 82 billion. So if BHP is bigger than those guys, which I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it must. I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably north of 100 billion. You'd suspect for BHP. Okay. And they're the companies that move. And this is the thing about, you know, and actually we've seen it with the stock rally in the United States. The Nasdaq has been taken off, as has the S&P. But if you look at the amount of stocks that have taken off, it's 10%. You know, 10% of 500 stocks have dragged the S&P higher. So, you know, I'm not even sure if it is as high as 10%. So indexes are really when you're trading indexes, you're trading the top 10 at a push. You know, you're probably trading the top 5 or maybe even the top 3 in some cases, because those companies are so much bigger than the others. If you look down the FTSE 100, when it gets down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, if it's top 5, actually the top 7, 183 billion is number 1. Number 7 is 75 billion, and then there's a big drop to 58 billion for the next company. So even the 7th biggest company won't move the top end of the FTSE, because it's not even half as big as the top one. So when you're trading indexes, you're not really sort of trading the whole thing. You're almost better off stock picking or picking sectors. That's a much better way to play it if you can. Pick the actual sectors within the index.
Yeah, and of course that's the laws of physics, isn't it? As far as what's our system called? A political system. So we're not capitalists, we're not socialists. We're, what are we? Anyway, whatever we are, that if capitalists, so that if eventually one guy owns a lot. I mean, that's how it works, and eventually that's why they all fail. That's what Jeff is always saying about, well, the dollar's history. This is history, that's history. Well, he's right too, but it's a matter of just getting the timing of all that, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Because it's all got to look at black. Well, have you done any homework on BlackRock lately? That is the most incredible behemoth in the world. That is something. They now reckon it's a de facto. It's or how do they word it? Basically, running the American government anyway. So worldwide, it runs the whole economy worldwide now. So it's just mind blowing. They banned them.
Yeah.
Did you see they were buying the houses at auction in America? All the houses that have been left derelict because of the setup over there, they were just buying them all, going to auction and buying them all. And then they realised they're owning whole towns and cities. So they've actually banned and put in legislation. They're not allowed to anymore. So just think of the complications or the consequences of that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is, I suppose, this is what the crypto market was attempting to fix as well. Is, you know, the monopolization and, you know, trying to make things decentralized. Difficult really with systems, but yeah, you can't really have anything with too much power because ultimately, you know, it will get taken down, and then everything else comes down, will fall down quite rapidly with it. BP not the biggest, Lewis. No, AstraZeneca is the biggest, and then it's Shell. BP is actually number 6. So Shell's bigger than BP by almost double the size of BP by market cap. But yeah, so I don't know. These and I guess that's the thing with monopolies, is that there's always going to be some company out there or somebody out there that will be able to disrupt, just as we've seen with, I guess, the PGA. Even the PGA have found that they're not a monopoly when somebody else comes in and has an idea. And challenges will always be there. Just like a dominant male as part of a pride, there will always be challenges, and eventually they're going to get beat.
And let's face it, whatever you're selling is only limited by how much money the person you've got is that you're trying to sell it to, isn't it? So if there's a richer person that values it, it just simply gets taken over. It doesn't matter what it is. Absolutely.
And they'll in technology and youth and things come into play. I mean, you can't stay at the top forever because, as you mentioned, physics and biology just make it so it's an impossibility. You think of the most powerful kind of investors to have lived. They haven't been able to pass their companies down to the next generation and remain there, because there will be somebody else that comes along that's been educated and motivated and will be able to challenge it.
That publication we mentioned once before, that in Moderate Greatness, that's a really good one on that, because obviously, whether people realise it or not, the world is governed by the 3 laws of thermodynamics. So that in its very own explains to you why it's all going to fail eventually. It's not possible to keep it going because you can't get something for nothing. So
what are the 3 laws of thermodynamics?
Oh, mate, I've studied that for years to learn it.
Okay. All right, well, next time.
Next time.
That's our homework. For next Thursday.
Well, basically, let me think. Well, you can't get something for nothing. Hot always goes towards cold. And there's always a waste product in between, I guess. And that's really...
mate, that's really interesting you say. So you can't get something for nothing. That's what we talked about with those accounts that are just sort of like come up and trading sort of systems that supposedly sort of claim to be the next million dollar kind of maker. The hot goes towards cold. That's the market not being able to go in one direction forever.
Yes.
And what was your last one?
Oh, I can't remember.
The waste in between.
So there's called entry. So the waste that's right. When you're, actually, I'll get a bit more technical. No, it's gone with my mind again.
I quite like that. The 3 laws of thermodynamics. I reckon you could write a whole philosophical book on that.
There is hundreds and thousands of them, and you've got to read them when you get your degree. You see.
Well, look at the chart.
So look at the chart. So that's why this sort of thing's easy for me eventually to work it out, because it's all governed by the thermodynamics.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
okay, that's our homework.
Everything you do is governed by those 3 laws. So you can't. It doesn't matter how many calculations and how smart you are, whether you're Henry Ford or what I thought of that was when you said that about Henry. The big guys can't always pass down their systems because other people don't understand them or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the knowledge that they've accumulated to create the systems, which is the same as what you trade or I trade or Jeff trades, well, let's face it, it's a bit more sophisticated than your average punter, probably. So how long would it take you to impart your knowledge even to me?
Yeah.
Who's got a basic understanding already? So it's just a nightmare for your average punter. So that's why it can never you just can't. It just doesn't work. It's not possible. And so that's where AI is good. And obviously in the automotive industry, can pass the knowledge down from one generation to the other because it's all done via computers or AI, you see.
Yeah.
You see, the bottom line is, as far as that goes, it's a good illustration. Nobody needs more than a Volkswagen. But the companies are trying to sell you a new F-111 every year.
Yeah. Very true.
Try and tell the people who have got the F400s or something that they don't, and that they need a Volkswagen.
That's why it's going to fail.
Yes.
But you know what? That almost is the perfect loop back to the conversation earlier about the PGA, because you're absolutely right. If we focus on what we need rather than what we want or what we're envious of, then we'd probably be in a much happier place. But actually, the conversation about that guy missing 300 million, it almost sort of like, our human nature almost kind of like, goes towards him and thinks, oh, he's really missed out. But the guy's a millionaire already, so he doesn't need that 300 million.
Yeah, doesn't have anything to him.
No. So and the only reason that he's missed out is because somebody else gained. Not because he's actually, if nobody else gained, then there'd be, nothing to sort of talk about, because he's in a great place already. But it's difficult, isn't it? Sort of like reminding ourselves that actually, if we take what we need, and that's it, then actually we all gain if we take what we need. But that's just not the way that human nature works. There's an inherent thing, and I was going to say there's always going to be something that wants more, but actually we all do. At some point we kind of like lose our way again, and we sort of like focus on the things that other people have got, and we get romanced by the fact that they haven't got a Golf anymore, but they have got a Tesla or whatever it is. And envy is probably the main destructor. We could probably do really well in the markets if we took all we need is, because money management wouldn't be a problem then, would it? Why do we have such bad money management? It's purely because of greed.
Greed, mate. That's it.
Yeah. I just thought of one of those laws of thermodynamics, and there's 4 actually, not 3, and one says energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to the other.
Yeah.
And so that's from everything from the markets to your car to what you eat to how you heat your house. Everything you think about is governed by those sorts of laws.
Yeah. Which is why sort of mushrooms are really interesting. That's exactly what happens with mushrooms, isn't it? Fungus. Yes. Fungus grows out of something dead. Well, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, that's right.
So why do you think we look at cycles in the charts? Because they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, the energy goes into the market at one end and it comes out the other end. And
I was going to ask actually, Phil. I was going to ask, how do we bring thermodynamics into time by degrees? I mean, surely we can get some sort of link.
That is, I'm glad you've asked this finally. The whole time by degrees is the what's the word? Is the governing
manifestation?
Factor, yes, is of the laws of thermodynamics applied to the markets. That's exactly what it is.
Right. Write that down, guys. Time by degrees is the manifestation of thermodynamics. Is that right?
Well, the laws of physics, anyway, I should say.
Laws of physics. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm liking that. All right.
So
I've got a lot of research to do, Phil.
It'll help you understand. It will help you understand life a lot better if you understand the laws of thermodynamics, because that covers everything you do, everything the world does, everything that happens. It doesn't matter how much Bill Gates, or BlackRock, if they accumulate every last thing on the planet, it's still going to fall in a heap because it has to maintain the equilibrium. It always reverts to the mean, the same as the market does.
So we are becoming a science show rather than...
Well, as long as we can work out what to trade and how to make money from it.
I think being a bit more scientific about would improve some people's trading, that's for sure.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Well, let's wrap it up. A fascinating conversation, and really good to kind of have you on board with all this stuff. Jeff and I probably aren't quite qualified to discuss this on our own. I don't know where we'd be, Jeff.
You could say that. Well, yeah, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be in that same realm, that's for sure. Although I'm extremely sympathetic to it, and I fully realise it and recognise it, and wish I could actually adopt it as quick as, well, Phil has done it over years as well, but it's far, far better for many, many. Oh, now I'm preaching. No, I shouldn't do that. The soul. It's good for the soul. Let me put it that way. At the end of the day. Got a trade for us before we go?
No. I mean, to be honest, I don't particularly look at this market at all. I would like the NASDAQ short. I do think it's going to be probably moved by those jobs numbers later on. I don't like where it is because it's right on support, but I like the NASDAQ short. Right? I do really. I mean, yes. I don't know if it'll get there. I mean, I very rarely do it, but I pulled up a fib on it, and the 23% retracement is about the most attractive thing I can find, and that's nowhere near that daily pivot. It actually would come closer to that the left shoulder, possibly sort of like creating where a right shoulder would be. So I would like
that'd be about 72% there, or
I
even
would
more.
well, no, mate. So I'd look at the closing price of that of both of those. You know, the closing price of the spinning top on the left shoulder.
On the left shoulder here.
Yeah, that would be a lot more
Or
interesting
here.
to me. Yeah. Sorry, the opening price. So top end of that. Yeah, that's where I'd be looking for resistance on that. But because that, if you pull up a fib of the whole of yesterday's range.
No, you're swearing at me now. Bloody fibs. Yesterday's range, the whole of it. So from here to here, or here to here?
Top to bottom of that daily, yesterday's bar. Not that one, yesterday's bar.
Jesus, what have I done there? See, I get all nervous when I have fibs. Yesterday's bar. That's this one.
Yeah. That brings us, you see that 23% retracement right on that red line. That's where I'd be interested in going short.
Right.
I just don't think
you wouldn't hang out for here to match the shoulder, right?
I probably wouldn't, mate. But the power of that bar yesterday, if those jobs numbers come out, the jobs numbers need to come out strong. I think there's probably sort of, there may well be enough momentum from yesterday to get speculators spooked, because the Nasdaq's, it's had a flyer. So, I wouldn't be too concerned about it kind of retracing too far into yesterday's bar. I'd be looking around about that area for a signal.
Okay, cool.
Before we go, Ash, would you quickly like the next two dates for the FTSE?
I would indeed, mate. I would indeed.
I'll just grab the screen.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Well, I've got to give you power.
Not sure.
Well, you've got the power anyway, regardless.
I've got the power, share screen, so here we go. That's it. Okay. So this is sort
by the laws of thermodynamics, you now have the power.
That's it. But how much? So another law is, or another good rule, Ash, is EROI. So energy return on energy invested.
Energy return on energy invested. Oh yeah, that is good. Do you know what? I really like that one, because back to my kind of cafe thing. I need to know that that I'm going to get a return on my investment. Yeah.
That's all you need to know when you're doing your business plan, is how much energy you're going to get return on the energy you invest.
Yeah. It's not dissimilar to Newton's third law, is it?
Well, that's all part of it, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Well, all of it ties in together, mate. Yeah, it's exactly right. So this is the FTSE, and I think we talked about the 7th and the 8th being possibilities, and that's sort of come in on this little low we've got now.
Yeah.
And the time by degrees, I've really simplified this. We've been using these ones across here, and now I'm introducing some extra degrees in the time. So we've been using the 30 primarily, which is this one. I've obviously added a 15, the 45, the 60, and the 80 or the 90.
Yeah.
And you can, and what I find is when there's going to be a turn.
Oh wow.
All of these points will line up with points, the valid points. If they don't line up, you're not going to get a turn. So this is from the 7th or the 8th. This is why I had both here, for these reasons. So that's the bottom. I didn't go too far into that because that's past. And then we apply, we know that's a valid point, so we apply the 15 from there. And then that projects this point into the future. So backwards, we go backwards and find the 30, which is this eye here. I've reversed them so we know the future. The 44 I shoot across here, comes out here, and we turn around and put it there. Same with the 50 and the 8 and the 90. And they all line up with valid highs and lows, as you can see quickly across here. People take bits and pieces, we know, well, that's variable, we'll try to do a day or so, whatever. And they all come out on the 16th. And the same logic, we apply the next known point, which is basically where we are now for other reasons. We won't go into that at the moment, but it's still time by degrees. These are 30 degrees from the high here, roughly. So that confirms that. The 45 goes back to the low here, look. the 60 goes back to the high here, the 90 goes back to the low here, and so we run all those back to the future, and that gives us a 22nd. So they're the next two dates we're looking for. And I think both these will be minor turns, not major ones. They're not going to be all-time highs or lows, in other words. There'll be some intermediate points like we've calculated that off along the way, but they're the two we'll be looking for next month. Or for this
Interesting, mate. Okay.
Rest of this month, yeah. That's about it.
You've just got a new nickname, Phil.
What's that, mate?
Marty.
Yeah, okay. Expand on that.
Back to the Future.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's it.
Marty McFly.
We learn from the past and we project it in the future. That's what we try to do, aren't we? So,
can you play guitar, Phil? Play
yeah,
Johnny Be Good. We need his theme tune to come on when he's on. Then Johnny Be Good will be the theme tune, right?
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
We're not allowed.
Right. No, we're not. We're in horrible, horrible trouble. I haven't even hummed a tune for a while. Paul must be getting very confident with us.
Right, great show, guys. Really enjoyed it. And we will wrap it up there, and then
quick wrap from me. Euro set up short, but I don't want to trade the euro short right now. And the reason why I don't want to trade the euro short right now is because we're caught in the trap. Oh no, I couldn't help myself. We're caught in a trap here. Yeah. And that is a resistance level and a horizontal level. A support level, all in one go. We're ranging, so it's a breakout, really, at the end of the day. But if I zoom this down into the real world, which is 30-minute charts, we find we're bang in the middle of this range. So it's a toss-up which way we're going next. There is a setup, which is break of three things: weekly pivot, daily pivot, trade line, then a retest of that. So as the theory goes, if we don't go up to here, we're probably going down to here, and that's going to be the turning point. So under there makes sense. Probably want to put your stop loss above the swing if you want to trade it, and you'd probably have to take some profit or get safe in the market when you hit this level here. That's actually doable if you wanted to take that on board with euro dollar. It's if you've got a trade, then that's probably okay to go with that. The others, been through the trades that I'm in. Gold, we decided not to take. Actually, Lewis asked me before, did we get in? Did we trade this long? We didn't want to trade it at all because we had very poor reward to our target, which would be the daily pivot, and to the short side, very poor reward to our target, which would be this double bottom sitting here. So we opted not to take that trade. One thing I didn't tell you, I've still got silver as a sell. This is a weekly order, so that won't expire until tomorrow. In fact, Saturday morning, early Saturday morning for me. But it's still there if you want to follow that one, and still entirely possible to trigger. $22.91 is the entry. And the stop loss is around about, I'll tell you exactly, $22.25. Sorry, $24.25. And first take profit is at $22, and actually I'll get this written down somewhere. $22.21. I don't know that there's a lot in this, to be fair, because I think this area will hold this up. But so take a good chunk off if you do get that first take profit. Get yourself some profit in the bank. And gold, we've been through. Silver, we've been through. NASDAQ, we've talked about. Oil, I still think oil's a buy, but I don't want to buy it where it is. I need price to get back into this range and come back and give us a higher low. This bar here was a shocker. Really threw me out. It had the market actually worked its way to there and hit that resistance level, then pull back, I would have been for sure long above that bar. But because it gapped up and then came back, now the market's just gone into complete denial, really. It doesn't want to do anything. But I suspect that come the right time, this double bottom and this higher low will actually mean something. So I really think price will get back up here at some stage. On oil, and I told you what I'm going to do with CAD Swiss, told you what I'm going to do with Kiwi Yen, and the FTSE still not moving, Ash?
No.
Nope. Okay, so that's it. That's me.
Cool.
Nothing
Good stuff.
particularly new. Short in silver too, Lewis. Yep. Are you in already, mate? That's probably a good thing to be in already, but I'm waiting patiently for it to trigger. Righto, now you guys know that I'll talk to you off air about what I'm doing next week. And there's no holiday on Monday, right?
No
there's
holiday
program on Monday.
Yeah.
Right. Happy days. So everyone, thank you for being our trading buddies for today. And if you're here on Monday for Monday, have a great weekend. Ash, thank you for being my number one trading buddy. And Phil, thanks for joining in as well. You're now a trading buddy named Marty. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend, everyone. So long. Bye-bye for now.